Hey guys, how are you doing? It's Martin Cliffe here, welcome to another video. And in this one, inspired by Lucas Fowler's video about the 10 riffs that made him want to play guitar, which as I'm filming this, I think only came published yesterday. Obviously it's a little bit later than this before you've seen this video. But I wanted to talk about 10 riffs plus one honourable mention that really inspired me as a young guitar player. They're perhaps a little different than a lot of people's, so you won't hear any AC/DC songs or Black Sabbath. But these are some of the songs that really got me to want to play, and particularly the key riffs that made me want to focus on being a better guitar player. And they're not in any particular order. They're mostly kind of in the hard rock genre, as one would expect, because that's what I was basically listening to in my early teens and right the way through. So the first song goes a little something like this. Now, some of you might recognise that as the intro to Madeleine by Winger, which was I think the first track on their debut album. I really loved. I think it's got a 12-string or a Nashville strung doubling of that introduction. Sounds really cool, really quite different before it goes into the heavy stuff. Yeah, Winger was big. It wasn't one of the first group of bands that caught my attention, but probably a couple of years down the line I started to really notice this Red Beaches playing in particular, so that was pretty huge. Next one is an inspiration, I think, for most, if not all, guitarists of my age range, and it goes a little something like this. Excuse the clown, but at least I won't get copyright blocked. So that's Extreme and Susie, Want Her All Day What, from Pornography, their big breakthrough album. I know it was the second album, but it was the first one that certainly in the UK really hit. And that was just, I think, possibly my introduction to a kind of slightly more funky rhythm guitar style, which I've really come to enjoy over the years. It's just amazing. Obviously I'm in standard tuning, that would be in E flat, as I think the previous one was as well. Now going back to one of the earliest songs that caught my attention once I started playing the guitar. Obviously, the infamous Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def Leppard. Again, Def Leppard, huge band, fairly local to me. Growing up in Manchester, Sheffield is not that far away. I didn't actually grow up in Manchester, but close enough. It was the nearest city to us. So yeah, big influence. I think Def Leppard was the reason I got so into vocal harmonies and guitar harmonies and really nice sounding hard rock music, melodic rock music, and they're still to this day a big influence. I can't say I've listened to a whole lot of their more recent stuff, but some of their early stuff, I mean, Hysteria is just an outstanding album, so yeah, love it. back before we had email and Skype and any of these things, my cousin Simon and I used to correspond initially by letter, but then what we started doing is sending each other tapes that had, essentially a recorded letter, but also songs on there that to kind of inspire each other. He was also learning guitar at the time, though he didn't take it a whole lot further. And this was one of the songs that he included on a tape for me. It's Welcome Home Sanitarium by Metallica. And I think it was possibly one of the first few songs that he sent me on this tape through the post. Those were the days. And I really, really loved the whole song. Obviously it's quite a powerful song lyrically. There were other songs, Fade to Black, Master of Puppets, I think one as well that he sent me of Metallica, and I've grown to love all of those, but this one in particular was the one that caught my attention first. And certainly over the years, particularly when I was playing in Fallen Angel, which was the kind of metal covers band that I played in, where I played mostly rhythm guitar, obviously then the James Hetfield rhythm style, which this song, well, that part of the song doesn't illustrate particularly at all, but that became a huge part of my playing technique over the years. And so yeah, thanks Simon for introducing me to a wider scope of music that really helped my technique. Now I don't know whether Guns N' Roses are one of the many blockers, so I'm being careful not to go too far with any of these riffs for copyright reasons, but obviously that is the intro to Paradise City from Appetite for Destruction, which I had a love-hate relationship with Guns N' Roses, if I'm honest. I wasn't into some of the more aggressive stuff. I've never been particularly into songs with bad language in them, but Paradise City in particular was one of the songs that really caught my attention as something a little bit different. At the time, most of the music that we were listening to and some of the riffs that we've played and will come on to was very kind of saccharine hard rock, I guess, and Guns N' Roses were a little bit different. They were a little bit kind of raw, and that was cool, and that was just a really fun song to play. So when I first heard Crazy Crazy Nights by Kiss, I had never come across the band before. I didn't know anything about the makeup or the whole 70s era of them at all. I just thought that they were a really cool new band. They weren't wearing silly makeup, they were just writing really cool songs with amazing vocals. And Crazy Crazy Nights was just a song that really inspired me. Particularly, as much for the vocals as for the guitar work, but it's such a fun riff. I never bought any Kiss albums, I never really learnt any of their other songs, except for God Ready for Rock and Roll to You Too. But that song was just a song that kind of really hit me and inspired me as a young player. It's a fun riff. So one of the first compilation albums I got on 12-inch vinyl was called Soft Metal, and that included a track by Poison called Nothing But a Good Time. And again, it was a song that caught my attention because it was quite good fun. It had some sort of fairly out there guitar playing in terms of cool technique and stuff like that. I know CC DeVille is not the greatest guitarist in the world by any means, but he seems to have fun when he plays, and that was just a fun song that I enjoyed at the time, and again, it's a riff that stuck with me. So again, like Kiss, the Scorpions were a band that I knew nothing about until the Crazy World album came out, and specifically it was Wind of Change, I guess the song that made me buy the album in the first place. But the title track there, Crazy World, again, that whole album is full of some really great riffs. I know it doesn't sound like typical Scorpion stuff, maybe that's why I liked it. It was a little bit more modern, a little bit heavier than a lot of their stuff. Yeah, great stuff, I really enjoyed it. And I think I used to play along quite a lot with most of the tracks on the album. There are a couple that are in E flat, so they were a little bit trickier to play along with, because back in the day, we'd stick our tape in our tape machine and just play along from start to finish. That's how I basically learned songs. None of this kind of rewinding. I used to get to the end of the album, or the end of the side, turn it over, learn the other side, and then turn it over and turn it over. So on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, I might spend 3 or 4 hours listening to the same 45 minutes of music over and over again, learning as much as I could of it. And that's really how I developed my ear and how I developed as a player in my teens, because back then we didn't have YouTube. I didn't even have a CD player until I was 18, I don't think, maybe 17. So I couldn't skip back, just skip back a track or anything like that. It was either a case of rewinding the tape, which used to wear and stretch the tape, or just let it play to the end, turn it over and go back. So that's basically how I learned how to play back in the 90s. So before I'd even picked up a guitar other than a little 4-string children's guitar that I guess is more like a ukulele these days, there's a picture of me playing left-handed when I was very small. The film that probably had the biggest influence on me other than Star Wars was Transformers the movie, the cartoon back in late 80s I want to say, maybe mid 80s even. So that album, I had the soundtrack album again on 12-inch vinyl. And there were some really cool tracks on that. One of those was what I just played, which was Hunger by the band Spectre General. I don't know much about the band. I know that the album was kind of put together by Vince DiCola and Stan Bush primarily, with LA bands at the time, I guess. But that song is really quite a fun, kind of heavy song. I think my mum blames Transformers the movie soundtrack on me becoming a rock musician. I really liked that song, how it had all the double stops. It's quite an easy song to play, but it is 2 strings at a time, almost all. And that's just really fun and a whole different technique than anything I learned before. Hopefully I'll get away with a clip that long of that. Is of course Tie Your Mother Down by Queen. Although the first time I heard it, it wasn't Queen that was performing it, it was Brian May at the Guitar Legends night of Expo 92, which I think was actually, the concerts were in October or November 91 in Seville. And that was literally within a few months of me picking up a guitar, I saw these concerts, and I got to see Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Betancourt and Brian May and Joe Walsh and so many outstanding guitarists. And I'm looking back and thinking that was also where I first saw Robert Cray and Albert Collins and B.B. King. I may have been aware of him before. And Paco de Lucia and John McLaughlin and Larry Coryell, and so many amazing musicians were featured on those, I think it's 4 or 5 concerts. But the kind of rock and metal night, which I think was the 5th night, the final night of it, was just a huge one. Again, I probably wore out, I taped it off the TV. It was on on BBC Two on a Monday night at like 11 o'clock or something. So I asked my dad to video it, and I think I even got up, because at that point I was quite young. I think I even got up and sneaked downstairs just to make sure that the video was recording that concert, because that was the only way to catch these things. And again, I probably wore that VHS tape out, watching it over and over again, learning as many songs as possible from that show. And Take Your Mother Down was definitely one that later on I went on to, I played bass in a Queen tribute band, but I played Queen a lot over the years. And that was, a really fun riff to play. Relatively straightforward, but Brian May just had a certain amount of presence, and Queen was always significant in terms of, growing up in the UK. It was hard to escape them in the 80s and early 90s. It was on the radio a lot because they were very popular. I know in the US that wasn't so much, because they disappeared because nobody could quite understand the I Want to Break Free video. But in the UK we understood it as being just funny. Now here I'm going to give an honourable mention. It fits in stylistically with all the other stuff, but technically I didn't hear it until later on, after I've been playing guitar for a few years. So this is, I guess, number 11, and it's a weird one because this is not the riff of the original song, but it's the riff of the version of the song that I heard. So that's how Steve Vai started My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama at the G3 Live in Concert video, DVD, Blu-ray I guess it is now. The show with Eric Johnson and Joe Satriani, the kind of ending jams, that was Steve's song, and he sang it with Mike Keneally, and it was just a really fun song. I was quite disappointed when later on, a few years later, we used to hang out in a pub in Blackburn, and on the jukebox they had Weasel Rip My Flesh, which was his Frank Zappa album that the song was on, and I put it on as one of my choices on the jukebox one evening and hated it. The song was not at all what I wanted. Now I listen to it and I can appreciate it much more. I still wouldn't call myself a Zappa fan, but I can certainly see a lot more about it. But at the time I was really disappointed that it wasn't as cool as the Steve Vai version from the G3 concert. Now you may be surprised to see on this list there are no songs by Dream Theater, but realistically I didn't discover Dream Theater until I was just about before I was 19, when I went to Sheffield. So this kind of was, I'd already been playing 6 years at this point, so I don't really consider them a formative influence, although they had a significant influence early on, later on. Also, I can't play a lot of their stuff. And now Riffs, I don't know that many of them are very memorable as riffs. Yeah, the songs were great, but I can certainly remember more keyboard parts from the early stuff than guitar parts. So, but yeah, certainly, the inspiration of John Petrucci took my playing to a whole different level, although I never got anywhere close to actually playing like him. But there are a couple of other songs that I will now include. They're kind of alongside the first 10. Songs that I heard and were inspirational, but perhaps not to the same degree. So the first one is rather well known. Now, one of my classmates was a huge Dire Straits fan. Tim, who I did herbal music with, Dire Straits and Pink Floyd was very much more in his wheelhouse than mine. But that, again, Money for Nothing is just a really cool riff that was, some people find difficult. I've never particularly struggled with it, but again, fun riff that inspired me early on. And then probably the biggest band that I discovered, well, I was probably 15, maybe 16, that really influenced me as much as anything was Queensryche, and one of the songs that I really loved from the Empire album. There are so many great riffs on that album, but Resistance was one that was really cool, so I'm just going to finish by having a go at playing that. It's been a while.